Good morning, baseball fans, and welcome back to Dan's Vintage Baseball PC. Do not be fooled by that fancy name. It's just me and some friends talking about baseball cards. And this morning, excited to have back our friend Mark Del Franco to discuss one of his favorite players and one of my favorite players, um, the 1950s pitcher Allie Reynolds. 40s and 50s. Allie Reynolds. Is, I believe, and I think Mark will agree with me when we bring him on in a bit, one of the most underrated players in the history of baseball, and we'll see why. So, Allie Reynolds, I'll bring up, there we go. Whoops. There we go. It's the front page of his baseball reference. He's born in 1917 in Bethany, Oklahoma. Allie Reynolds' father is approximately half Creek or Muskogee Indian. He was also a preacher. I believe it was the Nazarene Church. So Allie Reynolds he used to tell people he was a quarter Creek Indian, but he's actually 3/16 Creek Indian. He was also highly religious, so he didn't play that many sports until he got to high school, and then I guess he butted heads with his father, and he was allowed to play football and baseball in high school. He went on to play football at what was called at the time Oklahoma A&M University. It's now Oklahoma State University. The story is that he was also on track throwing javelin, and the baseball coach saw him throwing a javelin and invited him to baseball camp. And so ultimately he ended up becoming a baseball player at Oklahoma State. He was drafted by the Cleveland Indians, or signed by the Cleveland Indians, and played several years for Cleveland. Let's take a look at his stats here. This is his full statistics page at Baseball Reference. As you can see, he started in 1942, but became a regular in 1943 for the Indians. Pitched quite a number of years for the Cleveland Indians until there was a trade with the Yankees. Cleveland needed a solid middle infielder. Yankees needed pitching. So Allie Reynolds was traded up for Hall of Famer Joe Gordon, who went on to play second base for Cleveland. As a Yankee, he was dominant. He won 6 World Series, including 1947 and then 1949 through 53. We'll talk with Mark about his World Series performances, but he was 7-2 overall as a World Series pitcher, including a couple of shutouts. And his work in the 1952 World Series. It's quite amazing. You see his 1952 season is perhaps his best. He won 20 games with an ERA of 2.08, which led the league. He also led the league with 6 shutouts and led the league in strikeouts. If there was a Cy Young back then, he would have won it. But he ended up, I believe, second in the MVP voting that year. And interestingly enough, that season had 6 saves as a relief pitcher. So, he retired at the end of the 1954 season because of back problems. Also because he was financially set. He had invested in the offseason in oil mines in Oklahoma. And so he lived his post-baseball life in luxury. So Allie Reynolds passed away at the age, I believe, was 77. Where is it? There it is. Age 77 in 1994 in Oklahoma City. So let's bring on my esteemed guest here. We know him as the mayor of Twitter card world. He's also known as the enabler because he's very jokingly, he's one of those people that is always encouraging others in their collections. So my friend and yours, Mark Del Franco. How are you, sir, this morning?
Hey, Dan. How are you?
Pretty good.
Thanks for having me on. This is great.
Yeah, this is your second appearance and certainly not your last. And so brought you. We're both Yankee fans. I wore my Mercer shirt.
Yeah.
The true number 1, Bobby Mercer. They gave it back to Billy Martin when Bobby was traded, but Bobby Mercer will always be number 1 in my world. But anyway, so Allie Reynolds, You are known on Twitter as an Allie Reynolds collector and somebody
Yeah.
who, really goes out of his way to pick up Reynolds cards. So we're going to go through your collection. But as we do most times on this show, let's see. There we go. We're going to do briefly my collection, which includes 3 slabbed copies and then the 1953, which we'll get to. As you can see, the 48 Bowman is a 6, which I'm very happy with. That's
Beautiful.
a fantastic card. Then you got the 51 Burke Ross, which is also a 6. And then the 54 Bowman, which is also a 6. And then a card that I have raw, which is the 1953 Bowman, which of course we both love. It's
that's
maybe his best card.
I think so. That's my favorite card probably of all time. It embodies so much of what he was, what he stood for, and you're kind of like looking up in reverence at him. And that 50th anniversary Yankee patch is so great. So great.
Yeah, so you got the Yankee bunting behind him, and then he's got the look.
Absolutely.
And he's coming off that amazing 52 season, which is on the back here, the 20-8 with a 2.08 ERA. Actually, it's listed as 2.07 here, interestingly enough. And then 6 saves.
Not too bad.
So, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, but I feel like Allie Reynolds was not used very wisely by Casey.
So I mean, it's almost like he was very emblematic of that era in America. I mean, he just did what was needed, right? There was no specialization. Whatever it took, you want to start, you want to relieve, we need you here. That's what he did. It's his is just a great story.
Yeah, it's emblematic also of the way the Yankees treated pitchers back then.
Right.
Because other than they won all those World Series, but other than Whitey Ford, I'm talking 50s. You can go back to Ruffing is a Hall of Famer, Wade Hoyt's a Hall of Famer, but after the late 40s into the 50s and 60s, there's only one Hall of Famer pitcher out of that
Right,
whole
but arguably, I mean, I think we would all agree that Reynolds himself does belong in the Hall. But they were, he was part of Reynolds, Rashi, Lopat, and then Ford joins him in 1950, and they're off to the races.
Yeah, and it seemed like one of Casey's the way he managed was to pick the hot hand. So particularly in the World Series. So you will talk about 52, where Reynolds is the hot hand. And then in 55, it's Ford and Tommy Byrne, both who start 2 games in the World Series. And then later on, it's guys like Bob Grimm, then Bob Turley. So he's and in the 60s, you've got Stottlemyre and Boughton. Those guys, he worked them. And, for Reynolds, it was like the 52 World Series. He comes in, he starts game 1, pitches 7 innings. He pitches a complete game shutout in game 5, I think it is, or 4.
Game 4.
Okay. And then he pitches in relief in game 6. And then he pitches in relief and gets the win in game 7. And all of those games were on consecutive days. So
no off days for travel.
I did the math. In 7 days, he pitched in 4 games, 20 innings, 2 wins, 1 loss, and 1 save. Yeah, he got the save in game 6 too. So, that's they talk about burning out guys by pitching them, more than 100 pitches now.
Right. I just want to make just a quick point that I thought was interesting. You point out that Casey, Casey had a habit of, riding the hot hand and, pitching guys a lot. Ironically, it was because he didn't pitch Whitey Ford in 1960 that led to his ouster.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
He pitched, he used guys, the story with Ford is that he used them only against the best pitcher on the other team. So if the best pitcher didn't come up, then Ford would get skipped. which is why he started so few games until Casey was gone, and then 61 he wins 25 games.
But I have a great stat about Allie Reynolds in the finale of the 1950, 52, and 53 World Series in the deciding game. He either got a win or a save in each of them.
Yep. He was pitching. He got the win in Game 7 in 52, and he got the win in Game 6 in 53. I believe as a reliever. I think I'd have to go back and check, but yeah, no, he's got 6 rings. Yep. He appeared in 6 World Series and won all 6 of them. So anyway, back to the cards here. Okay. I love this 48 Bowman card, and we talked. You were on the show for the 48 Bowman.
That's right.
Black and white set, but some of the pictures are kind of blah. But this one,
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, it's a 48 card set, and it's one of the reasons it just all works for me because I love Bowman, and he's kind of like that player that's in all of the Bowman sets except for 1952, which I would love to find out why.
Yeah,
we have a 52 Bowman.
He's got a 52 tops, but no 52 Bowman.
That's right.
And then he goes back to Bowman for 53 to the end.
Yeah. And
he has no other tops cards, right? He only has the one tops card.
He's got the 52 and the 53.
And 53, right.
Yep.
Okay, we'll get to that. And then the 49 Bowman, the picture in the 49 Bowman is a picture that appears often in the team picture packs. And it's that, like, portrait with him kind of looking off a little bit. His eyes are kind of looking off camera.
Yeah, and the 50 Bowman is similar to that as well.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we'll move along to that one. So we got, this 50, it's the same one. And then the 51 Bowman, which is a beautiful card.
Absolutely.
I'm starting to appreciate 51 more. I'm not a big fan of the black, nameplate.
Yeah, same way.
But the art. I bought a 51 Bowman of Don Newcomb the other day. It just came in the mail, and I was looking at it, just like, oh wow, this card is just a piece of art.
Is it a horizontal card?
Yeah.
So
same with Reynolds here. You got the green, and you got the very brown infield dirt there, and then he's warming up. He's got that stare down again. So love the 51s and his like traditional look there. So now we got 53. You don't have the 52 tops, and neither do I, but I'm sure my friend Sean will have a copy for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I need to get one.
So you have 3. I do not have the 53 tops. I did once own it. I went to a small card show out on Long Island, and there was so few vintage guys that I went to the one vintage guy that had anything decent, and got excited because he had the 53 Reynolds.
Yeah.
And I bought it, and then I brought it home and saw, and it was nice. It was like, centered, like gradable quality, I thought. Then I brought it home and noticed when I picked it up and put it in the light, there was like a big crease right down the side. I was like, oh, crap. Anyway, so I ended up selling it for what I paid for it. I'll get a nicer copy because this is a nice card here. 53 tops.
Yeah, and but again, I mean, that 53 Bowman is just it's got all the elements. And my favorite card, my favorite set. It's my avatar on Twitter, in fact.
Yes, that's right. Now, what exactly is the patch there?
It's a 50th anniversary, 1903 to 1953 Yankees.
Okay.
So it's a team patch, and you can see it if you zoom in on it. But that's what it is. It's a 50th anniversary patch.
So did they wear that in 52 or 53?
I don't know.
Okay, because I'm, a lot of these I think he's card number, I don't know, 48 or something in this set, and I guess the sets were distributed at different times. Of course, there's the black and white too, which is distributed later.
Right.
So this, it could be an early 53 photo. But yeah, interesting. I didn't notice until today that they got his ERA wrong. He's at 207 here, and it's 208 in.
I think in Baseball Reference it's 206.
Is it 206? That's right.
Yep.
Yeah. So he's a little controversy there. Or maybe we found the error card.
Maybe. I'm not that lucky though.
Yeah, right. The old error
But
card.
so Dan, the thing about Allie Reynolds is, of course, his nickname was the Chief.
Yes.
But reportedly, they all the ball players at the time who were kind of Native American were always referred to as Chief. That's kind of how it was. Allie didn't like that.
Yeah.
He didn't like to be called Chief. There's a story that Bobby Brown likes to tell that in the Santa Fe Railroad, there was a train that went from Chicago to California. And on that train, they had a car named as the Super Chief.
Right.
And it was known for its, its poise, its power, its speed, its elegance. So they thought that was an apt nickname for Reynolds.
So, yeah, so he became Super Chief when people talked about him. But when the players said when they talked to him directly, they called him Allie.
Yep.
And I think what was said about the reason he didn't like the Chief or Super Chief was because he was in fact a member of the Creek tribe. His father, as I said, was about not quite half Creek Indian, but got his tribal membership, and then as a result of that, Allie Reynolds was able to get his tribal membership, and he, the calling somebody a chief is a sacred term, so he's essentially saying to you, like, it would be like calling me father, because I'm Catholic,
Right.
or deacon, which is another baseball name.
Right.
A bunch of guys named Deacon in the early days, but so he definitely was proud of his Native American heritage, because when he went back after he retired, I think he did some charity work, and he got some awards, and
a bunch.
Yeah, so he's he was besides the fact that he was a formidable pitcher, also a formidable human being. So that that's nice to know. So let's move on.
Okay.
I love this 54 card. I know I bought it on Twitter. It is a 6, and it deserves a 6. But the same thing with the looking away, and he's looking very stern.
Yeah.
Gotta love that.
Yeah, it's all in his face. I love cards that you could just kind of tell the man that's just in his countenance. It's just great.
And then so the right is a 61 Fleer.
That's right.
Which is retired players. So he was, I guess he was thought of so highly at that point, historically.
Yeah, he had won 6 World Series.
They put out an all-time great set. He's in it.
Yeah. And so this is what I love about the hobby community on Twitter or X. It's such that people are so generous and so giving that I was gifted this slabbed autograph Allie Reynolds because they knew that was my favorite player, and I was just touched beyond belief.
Yeah, I mean, I know where you're coming from, because I've gotten some freebie stuff and participated in putting together some random acts of kindness, but I mean, Mark, you're extremely well thought of in that community, so I'm not surprised that people were sending you stuff.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's nice to hear.
Yeah, it's funny because I saw you referred to jokingly as the enabler the other day. I remember that had been used before, not in a detrimental way, but in kind of a funny way, like you're a guy who encourages other people to go after.
Sure, go for it.
Exactly. Yeah. So that is a beautiful signature also.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's great. Yeah, I don't. I'm unlike you, and we've talked about this before. I'm not a big graded guy. I like raw cards. There's certainly a monetary aspect to that as well. But this is just a great copy. I'm so happy to have it.
And so Allie Reynolds, we talked about, was also a educated man. Um, he went to what is now known as Oklahoma State University, and also smart in terms of his post career, where he went ahead and bought into some oil wells and became a businessman and was quite successful.
Yeah.
So smart guy too.
He was also a player representative.
Oh, that's right.
Um,
Right.
for
Yeah,
the American League, and he was one of the guys who brought about this idea of pensions for players in retirement. And then
correct.
he later sued in federal court because there was some nonsense going on with the funds. So, yeah, he was a legendary guy.
So I brought up the 55, and because it's a sideways card, it gets that nice big look.
Yep.
Great card. Not particularly expensive. I went on Twitter to not Twitter. I went on eBay to try to see the back of the card, which we'll get into in a second.
Yeah.
Um, and there was a PSA 7 for like $80. I
Yeah.
almost pulled the trigger.
Yeah, no, I need to replace this. I'm not I don't like spider cracks on cards, but again, it was I had an opportunity to get it. Uh, Ironically, in the 1950, well, not ironically, but in the 1955 Bowman set, this is the card before Mickey Mantle.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So he's
So
on the same page as Mickey
I
Mantle.
think the other thing that you and I have in common in terms of collecting sets, which I do. I do player runs, I do sets, I do, oddball things, but also the concept that you get the card because you can always upgrade it.
Yes.
So that to me, that's what this is. You got this card, yeah. Someday you'll upgrade it, but at
Correct.
this point,
That's
I don't see any problem with it. Yeah, I do see the little crease, but
Yeah, that's
so
it. I mean, that's to me, you summed it up. I mean, that's exactly one of the things, the thrills I love about, just obtaining a card is to upgrade a card. And it's just, it's one of my favorite things to do. So you're exactly right.
so I looked at the back of this card because Allie Reynolds finished playing his final season is 1954 when he was really effective. He was mostly reliever. He won 13 games. They didn't win the pennant that year. They won 100 and something games, but Cleveland won like 180 games. So it's like, okay,
I think Cleveland won 111 games.
yeah,
Yankees won over, I think they won 103 games, maybe.
I think that's the number that comes into my head too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
they
finishing
won more
8
games.
games behind.
They won more games than they had won in their previous like 3 World Series teams. So anyway, he's got a back injury, and the story about the back injury is that it's the end near the end of the 53 season. They played in Philadelphia, and the bus is driving them to the train station, and the bus hits like an overpass or something, and like has a crash, and
Yeah.
nobody gets hurt except for Allie Reynolds hurts his back. Um, and so he pitched in the 1953 World Series and wasn't that effective because his back was giving out. And then he pitched the 1954 season with the hurt back and decided at the end of 54 that he'd had enough. So
Yeah.
here's his 55 card, which it says on the back, beautiful stuff about him, his career, all the things he'd done. And we should go back to 51 for a second. It also talks about 51. And then the last line is Allie Reynolds retired before the 1955 season. It's like, okay.
Right.
It's like the Mickey Mantle, the 69 mantle.
1969 tops, right? Yep, March 1st. So, so in 1951, Allie Reynolds did something that only one other person had done before. He threw 2 no-hitters in a season.
Yep.
Once against Cleveland, once against the Red Sox.
And he won an award called the Hickok Award, which I guess is like the Sportsman of the Year.
Well, it's the award given to the top professional athlete, I guess, at the time.
And didn't win the MVP. I think he finished third in the MVP voting that year. And of course, didn't win the Cy Young because it didn't exist at that point. But his 8-0 complete game no-hitter over the Red Sox in September clinched at least a tie
That's right.
for the pennant, and then on the second game of the doubleheader, Vic Raschi won, and they clinched the 51 pennant. Um, so going back to the retirement and what you said about his work with the pension, Allie Reynolds was the player rep, and they kept him on even after he retired for a couple of years because he was so effective with it, and because he had established this pension system that he was sticking by,
Yeah.
and so helping out retired players can't and other players you can't mess with that. So I don't know what this is, but it's cool because it gives us a nice little rundown of his first no hitter in
Yep.
1951.
So in I'm a big fan of the Upper Deck baseball offering. So in 2008, Upper Deck produced a card for every game at Yankee Stadium. That set is called Yankee Stadium Legacy. So it's like 6,000 or 8,000 cards in total. But this is one of them.
Oh, I also, this is not his no hitter. This is just a win.
Yep. That's just yeah, right.
Yeah. So it says game 2207. Okay, so that's cool. Reynolds gave New York fans a glimpse of things to come, pitching a 1-0 no-hitter at Cleveland in July 12th, 1951. He delighted Yankee Stadium faithful with a repeat performance 9/28, blanking the Red Sox 8-0 with another no-hitter. But this game on 5/22, he gave up 4 hits and 1 run, but beat the St. Louis Browns and their ace, Ned Garber.
Yep.
There you go. Let's go on to okay. So there's 2 things here that are somewhat unrelated. So the left is that beautiful signature again with what looks like a newspaper clipping. Can you
That's right.
tell us what we have here?
Yeah, so this was in the same random act of kindness that I got on Twitter. It's another Allie Reynolds autograph with just his picture, and it's him as a member of the Cleveland Indians, which
Right.
really interesting. So just a great piece, an oddball piece that's in my Reynolds collection.
And on the right,
Is a 2002 Topps issue talking about his exploits in the 52 World Series.
so uh, Reynolds came in. I think it was the 3rd inning of game. It might have been the 4th. It's the 3rd or the 4th inning. Lopez
Yep.
starts game 7. And Reynolds comes in to relieve with, I think, the bases loaded. Gives up 1 run of Lopez, and then pitches 3 full scoreless innings
Holds him at bay.
after having saved the game before that, the day before that, and pitched a shutout 2
Yeah.
days before that. So he ended up getting the win because the Yankees take the lead while he's pitching, and then he gets in trouble. The bases are loaded, and or no, they bring in Raschi, who also had pitched Game 6
Yep.
to relieve Reynolds. And Raschi, I think, gives up 2 base runners, and then they bring in Bob Kusava.
Kusama. Yep.
And Bob Kusava gets Jackie Robinson to pop up into the infield. This is the 7th inning, and nobody wants to take it. Billy Martin comes rushing into the middle of the infield and picks the ball out of the air, and that's the end of that 7th inning. And then Kusava pitches 2 pretty strong innings to get the save, and that's the end of the 1952 World Series.
One
Yeah.
of the great aspects I love about this card is that you get to see his number 22.
Yes.
And Yankee fans, modern Yankee fans, know 22 is a number that was worn by Roger Clemens and Jimmy Key and Robinson Cano. But I would like to see them retire 22 in honor of Allie Reynolds. I know he's got a monument in Monument Park,
Mm-hmm.
but you're retiring numbers. Why not 22?
Well, one of the things about Yankees retired numbers is that I think they've got I think they've got 1 through 11
Right.
already retired. You know, Anybody who played for George Steinbrenner, who he got sentimental about, got a retired number.
Right.
I don't know. Does Mickey Rivers have retired? I mean, Reggie played 5 years.
Some people share the number, right? I mean, there's 2 8s.
Yeah,
Should be 2 9s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
2 9s, right.
Yeah.
So, I'm with you. He's got a monument in Monument Park, which is cool, which they put up. I forget, was it in the 80s or 90s they put it up?
I think it was 89.
Okay. And then, so he died in 94, so he got to see it. That's cool. But I don't know. I don't know about the number, Mark. I think they've retired enough.
Right.
All right. So do we have another slide? Oh, yeah. This is the last slide.
Yeah. So this is another Upper Deck offering. And, my comment about before about all being seen in the face. And then you have Yogi Berra whispering in his ear. I think it's just such a great, great photo.
Oh, it is fabulous. I just wish we knew what Yogi had said there, because it was probably something pretty funny.
On Twitter, I actually reached out to Lindsey Berra just for some anecdotes about how, if Allie Reynolds was, how he was thought of by her grandfather. And so I'm still waiting to hear back, but I would love to know more about their relationship.
Yeah, the story with Allie's second no-hitter in 51 was against the Red Sox. And Ted Williams is up with 2 outs in the ninth, and he pops up.
That's right.
And Yogi Berra fumbles it, doesn't catch the ball.
Yep.
So, it's an error, but it continues the bat. So apparently in the conversation at the mound, Berra apologized, and Allie said, don't worry, Yogi, we'll get him on this one. And on the next pitch, or one pitch right after that, he pops up again. And Berra,
Ted Williams, no less.
Yeah, he got him to pop up twice in a row, but Yogi caught the second one. So
yeah,
I feel like they had a positive relationship, because Reynolds was one of those guys, like we talked about. He could long relieve, he would short relieve.
Right.
He would start games, and if you look at his stats, his games pitched never equals his starts. He's always got relief appearances, and you got to respect a guy like that. And Yogi was, as funny and quirky as Yogi may have been, I think he respected the ability and
he took the ball.
Team first.
Took the ball. Yep.
So the last item on there is neither yours nor mine. It is a program from the 1951 Hickok Awards, which Allie Reynolds received Professional Athlete of the Year in 1951, and it is has a signature and a little what do you call it? A little greeting and signature. It's the gentleman named Cooter Lev. Cooter Lev is on Twitter as Cooter Lev, and he's on YouTube as Cooter Lev. And he very graciously allowed us to show people on this show this terrific little piece there. So another great picture.
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's funny, going back to the trade that brought Allie Reynolds to the Yankees. You had mentioned that the Yankees needed pitching, Cleveland needed middle infield help. Apparently they went to Joe DiMaggio because the Yankees since had their pick of anybody but Bob Feller, and Joe DiMaggio says, "Well, take Reynolds because he's the only guy I can't hit," something like that. So kind of praise from Caesar. So.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was reading, and the Yankees were leaning towards a different pitcher whose name is escaping me right now, but DiMaggio said, "Get this guy."
Yeah, was it Mel Harder?
It might have been Mel Harder. I forget.
Yeah.
But they ended up. DiMaggio was right. They got a guy, and he helped them right away. 47, he was terrific, and they won the World Series.
And really, this is one of the first. The Yankees throughout the years have always kind of mined Cleveland for these like outrageous lopsided trades. So this was the first of them.
Well, Joe Gordon was a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, right. I
You
know.
know, I mean, it's
But
not.
I mean, but Joe Gordon didn't rise to the heights that Allie Reynolds did after the trade.
That's true. That's true. He was sort of on the tail end of his career. I should mention Allie Reynolds did not was not in the service. He pitched during World War II for Cleveland. He did volunteer and went to get the physical in 1942, but was told that he was not eligible because he had football injuries. So, I mean, I assume it's probably something related to the back. He was also diabetic, which shortened his life a little bit.
Yep.
So it's not that he didn't go to the war, not that he didn't want to go to the war, but he wasn't physically eligible to go. So he pitched throughout the years, the lean years when there were hardly any players. But when players came back, he was just as good.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you and I have pretty much all of his flagship except that 52. But I did put together a list of what we could go after in the future. There's some odds here.
Now, who is the enabler, Dan?
Yes. This is the list.
Ooh.
He's got of 1947 Tip Top Bread. I have a couple of cards from that set. It's basically just a picture, and on the back is an ad for Tip Top Bread. 1948 Blue Tint is it's a small card that's a hand cut. It's not great. It's not a great set. 50 Drakes is something that I'd like to go after because those cards I like. He's got a 50 Drakes, but they're expensive and they're hard to get. 51 Tops. I don't know if either one of us really like the 51 Tops game cards. 52 Burke Ross is identical to the 51 Burke Ross that I have. It's just a longer card. There's a Dixie Lids Premium in 52, but there's no reference to having an actual Dixie Lids, which seems odd. So there's probably a 52 Dixie Lids. StarCal decals, another Tip Top Bread in 52, which is really hard to get. It's those ones that have it's a square, but it's got little rounded cutouts around the edges. I've tried to get cards from that set. The quality is always bad. It's like paper. 53 Dixie Lids and premium. HO Oatmeal. Remember HO Oatmeal? Northland Bread, which I never heard of. The 53 to 55 Dorman postcards are very nice. They mostly New York players. I was trying to get the Gil Hodges for a while because it's a beautiful photo in Yankee Stadium. And that's one worthwhile. And then the Journal American, which is sort of a off color brownish blackish thing that's not particularly I'm not really moved by the Journal American cards. And then there's various team photo packs. So that's the rest of Reynolds. I wouldn't mind a 47 Tip Top Bread.
Right.
I would like to get the Drakes and I would like to get the Dorman postcard. But the rest of them I could do without. So anyway, that's what we got for Allie.
Dan, thank you so much. This has been great.
Yeah, it's always great to have you on because you're I believe you're a journalist, right?
I am. That's correct. Yeah.
So you have the journalist's mind for facts and remembering.
I have an intellectual curiosity.
Yeah, and so I'm happy to bring you on for anything. But your next invite is going to be when I finish my 1953 Bowman set in all slabs. So
wow. And how far are you along?
I'm about 100 right now.
Wow.
So at the Strongsville show, I brought home 6 new slabs. So that was a nice little dent in the.
Let me ask you: are you building them in uniform? Do they all have to be PSA 6 or SGC 5 or
total Frankenstein? They're not all. You remember the 48 Bowman set? I had the whole thing in SGC. No, yeah. 53 Bowman. I have. It's about half between SGC and PSA, but I also have maybe 4 Beckett slabs. So, and the grades go anywhere from 2 to 7.
Do you have the mantle 53?
Yeah, 4.5. PSA 4.5. Yeah, it's a good one.
Beautiful card.
So that's Allie Reynolds for you. That's a good one. That's a lot of great stats, great stories, and I appreciate you coming on, Mark. Next week, I'm going to have another return guest. It's the Jimmy Fox Show. with Mark Hoyle.
Awesome.
So looking forward to
Oh,
that
absolutely.
one.
I'll be tuning in for that one.
I would hope so.
Yeah.
And anyway, thank you, Mark, for coming on. Thank you, viewers, for watching this show, and we will see you again next week.
Thanks, Dan.